Hello, sir. Good evening.
हाँ जी, गुड इवनिंग प्रदीप जी, गुड इवनिंग जी।
So we are talking about the contents of the book. You are a very good book. The
हाँ
revolutionaries shed their blood for India's independence, Part One.
हाँ जी।
So in
हाँ
this series, now we have come to the next topic
जी,
of the book, which is supreme sacrifices of Gadar patriots.
हाँ जी, चैप्टर
So
14।
in this, there are two very important components. One is
हाँ
Lahore conspiracy case judgment, and other is seven patriots sent to gallows.
हाँ जी।
So first, let us discuss about Lahore conspiracy case.
Start with the page 142 with the beginning of the chapter.
Okay, supreme sacrifices of Gadar patriots. Yes.
हाँ जी।
Okay. Okay.
So it is like this because India was being looted by the British. Many of the Indians, in search of uh, some income, they started moving towards Canada or America for earning their livelihoods. And because they were available on the on small amounts for labor, so they were opposed by the white labor. Uh, and moreover, we being a countrymen of a slave country, we were called Hindu slaves by the children also in the cities. Whenever a complaint was lodged with the British council, they used to object to it. Instead of helping the Punjabis, they used to rather rebuke them. So
Mhm.
they started making me, they have to, a Gurdwara, they constructed a Gurdwara where they used to sit and discuss their problems. And they also made an association so that they may could take up a joint decision. Some Americans also, they also extended a great help. They made an Indo-American National Association for encouraging more Indians to come to America to learn about industry and ultimately to learn how to get their country released from slavery. So, yeah, Ghatak patriots, they were very enthusiastic about their country, and they ultimately they reached the conclusion that nothing is possible until they get their country free. If they remain to the country workers of the slave country, then their complaint would not be heard, and all their efforts would go in waste. Ultimately, it was although they had their number had grown into thousands in the Canada joining America and America joining Canada, and it was only in March 25, 1913, when Lala Hardyal, which we have already discussed yesterday, he along with Pai Parmanand, they reached Saint John, which was the headquarter of uh, under Kishori Lal, where they used to meet, and all Punjabis used to meet and discuss their problems. Ultimately, they decided that we should constitute convert all parties and made one party's name only Gadar. So the Gadar party was the building which was taken on hire. It was in, say, named as Yugantar Ashram, means in the name of the Bengal revolutionaries. And Vande Mataram was given the slogan. The page of Gadar Ki Goonj, which they used to publish their poems, and in newspaper stop. On one side it was written as Bande, the other corner Mataram, and ये पंजाब and the poem of Punjab, जे चित प्रेम खेलन का चाओ सिर धर तली मेरी गली मेरी आओ. अगर आपको supposing a girl was saying that if you want to love me, keep your head on your hand and come enter in my street. So this was a kind of that anybody who wants to join the Gadar party, first he should be prepared to die, and then he should attempt to join. And Gadar Weekly, such noble poems were made by them, which were in praise of the earlier patriots who had got martyrdom for the sake of the country, and also as well as the encouragement to the future generation. For example, on page 142, they said, ਬੜੀ ਸ਼ਰਮ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬੜੇ ਢੀਠ ਹੋਏ, ਵੱਡੇ ਸਾਡੜੇ ਸੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਸ਼ਾਨ ਵਾਲੇ, ਨਾਮ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਹਾਨ ਰੋਸ਼ਨ, ਖਾਤਰ ਕੌਮ ਦੀ ਕਸ਼ਟ ਉਠਾਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ. Matlab, this was the praise of the earlier people. Now, what they had decided for themselves, that poem is given on page 143. ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ 57 ਜੋ ਗਦਰ ਹੋਇਆ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਚੜਿਆ 57ਵਾਂ ਸਾਲ ਸਿੰਘੋ. Now 57 years have expired now. ਸਾਨੂੰ ਚੜਿਆ 57ਵਾਂ ਸਾਲ ਸਿੰਘੋ, ਦੂਜਾ ਗਦਰ ਜੋ ਫੇਰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਹੋਇਆ, ਵਿੱਚ ਆਨ 57ਵਾਂ ਸਾਲ ਸਿੰਘੋ. ਇੱਕ ਗਦਰ, ਇਸ ਗਦਰ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਲਣਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਸਾਡਾ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਸਮਝ ਲਓ ਆਪਣਾ ਬਾਲ ਸਿੰਘੋ, ਆਪਣਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਸਮਝੋ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ, ਨਾਲੇ ਗਦਰ ਮਚਾਵਣਾ ਫਰਜ਼ ਸਾਡਾ, ਭਾਰਤ ਵਰਸ਼ ਦੇ ਨੌ ਨਿਹਾਲ ਸਿੰਘੋ. ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹਨਾਂ, this was made as encouragement that they have to do it. So ultimately, Gadar Weekly was released in Urdu language with effect from November 1, 1913. And they also published Gadar Di Goonj. It was a collection of poems, simple poems, and Gadar Weekly used to circulate out all the Indians settled anywhere in the world other than India. So to arouse the feelings of independence in them. Its Punjabi edition was started by Vande Mataram, I mentioned, was the earlier written on both the parts. The Kartar Singh Srabha, who was a young boy of 15 or 16 years old, he had gone there for further studies. He joined the Gadar party, and while printing the first Punjabi weekly, was released on December 8, 1913. And while he was working on the machine, bringing out this Punjabi weekly, he used to sing, Seva Desh di Jindadiye Badi Okhi, ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਢੇਰ ਸੁਖਾਲੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇਸ਼ ਸੇਵਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੈਰ ਪਾਇਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲੱਖਾਂ ਮੁਸੀਬਤਾਂ ਝੱਲੀਆਂ ਨੇ. So that was San Francisco. The headquarters was fixed at San Francisco, where this Jugantar building was used for release of Gadar Weekly, both in Urdu and Punjabi. It had so much effect throughout the world that ultimately it created a feeling among the Indians that till we fight for independence, they won't, they will not get any relief. In another poem, written in Gadar Di Goonj, Hindustan Sada Asi Hindwasi, Sabak Bachian Tain Sikha Jana. They said that not towards us only, even that our children must be told that we Hindustan Sada Asi Hindwasi, Sabak Bachian Tain Sikha Jana, प्यारे प्रीतमा चले हाँ असी जिथे ऐसे रास्ते तुसी भी आ जाना. This was the kind of patriotism, feeling arise in the hearts of the people by hearing such like poems. Here ultimate they also wrote in their Gadar di Goonj, ਗੱਲਾਂ ਫੋਕੀਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਨਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੁੰਦੇ, ਵੇਲਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਯੁੱਧ ਮਚਾਵਣੇ ਦਾ, ਨਾਮ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਹਾਨ ਰੋਸ਼ਨ, ਸ਼ੌਕ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਪਾਵਨੇ ਦਾ। ਮਤਲਬ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਟਾਕਿੰਗ ਐਂਡ ਵੀ ਵਿਲ ਗੇਨ ਇੰਡੀਪੈਂਡੈਂਸ, ਵੀ ਵਿਲ ਹੈਵ ਟੂ ਗਿਵ ਦੀ ਲਾਈਫ। ਐਂਡ ਅਲਟੀਮੇਟਲੀ the Gadar party, Lala Hardyal was elected as the general secretary, and Sardar Son Singh Pakna, he was elected as the uh, president of the Gadar party. So when these problem, in the meantime, another sea ship, Kamangata Maru, had gone to Canada with
Mhm.
Indians, but
Mhm.
the Indian government was not allowing them to settle there, to enter in the Canadian waters. So they remained stood in on the open sea for about 2 months, and ultimately they the in the travelers, they demanded that they should be paid compensation for 2 months and ration for going back to India, and only then they will leave the place. Then they left ultimately, the Canada government provided and they left for India. When Son Singh Pakna came to know that the Canada Kamanga Nam, its name was Kamagata Maru, Jahaz name, or when Kamagata Maru was going back, and it would touch this Japan, Japan port. So Son Singh Pakna reached there fastly and reached Yokohama on July 21, 1914, so that to give a Ghazal literature uh, to the travelers of Kamagata Maru, and also to hand them over bunk, big boxes of weapons so that they should go to the country and they should kill the Britishers so that they may be compelled to leave the country. Uh, there was a big josh among the people. See, when ultimately, and they were deciding that when the Germany, the war takes place between Germany and England, so they will help Germany and fight the British so that they may also get their country independent. It was on 4th August, August 4, that uh, England declared war against Germany, and on the next day, that is August 5, 1910, the Ghazal party declared war against England. In the meantime, its effect was so much that the police, the British government got arrested Lala Hardyal in April, in uh, March 1913, and ultimately he was released on bail, on which he went to Lala Hardyal went to Sweden, and the Ghazal press was controlled by the other Ghazal leaders. So, when the war was declared by the Ghazal party against the England on August 1914, they issued a public advertisement that they wanted people to fight for the country, and see on page 153 the conditions type of which they given. They can say, what is the salary? Can they death? What would be the award? They say martyrdom. Pension की होएगी. It would be a freedom of the country. Field of war, Hindustan. So ultimately they started ship loaded with all Punjabis. Mainly they were Punjabis. They started leaving for the country. In the meantime, when the British learned about it, they issued two notifications. One was issued in August end, and the other was issued in September 5. The first ordinance was Foreigners Ordinance issued on August 29, 1914, and the second was issued on 5 September 1914, Ingress into India Ordinance. So by these two organizations, they armed themselves that any person, Indian person, maybe Indian, coming by ship to Calcutta would be shot dead, or he would not be allowed till inquiries are made from him as to for what purpose he was coming to India. And even the Punjab police was called at Calcutta to identify the Punjabis and to know about their whereabouts. So many of this, the first of all, Tamanga Tamaru ship landed at Calcutta when the British opened the fire. This ship had landed at at Bajbaj Ghat on September 27, 1914. And when they started firing at them, 19 were dead, 21 were injured, 72 were imprisoned, and a number of them were missing. Therefore, the British uh, tried to halt the journey or the war initiated by the Gadar, the people of Gadar patriots. So ultimately, they encouraged the Gadar patriots, convinced everybody by simple poems. ਹੀਰਾ ਹਿੰਦ ਸਾਦਾ ਹੀਰਾ ਹਿੰਦ ਨਾ ਭੁੱਲ ਸੀ ਕਦੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜਿਚਰ ਆਖਰੀ ਤਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਖਿਆਲ ਮੇਰਾ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਕੈਸੀ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਰਹਿਸੀ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਅੰਦਰ ਵਾਲ ਵਾਲ ਮੇਰਾ ਮਾਤਾ ਹਿੰਦ ਮਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੋਦ ਦਾ ਦੁੱਧ ਪੀਤਾ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਵੱਲ ਖਿਆਲ ਮੇਰਾ ਖਾਤਰ ਹਿੰਦ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਬਾਹਰ ਦੇਣੀ ਜੇਕਰ ਸਮਝਿਆ ਨੇਕ ਖਿਆਲ ਮੇਰਾ matlab, they were a very people dead with the conviction that they will have to fight out the British and throw them out. And when they learned that the British have started firing at the uh, arrival of people by ships at Calcutta, they somebody changed their routes and some others adopted different routes. Some reached via Sri Lanka, via Madras, or via Maharashtra by taking a circuitous route. And ultimately, many of the Gadar leaders had reached Punjab. Now they thought that we have now decided what to fight out the British, and they needed a leader who could guide them. And ultimately, they thought that Ras Bihari Bose was a competent authority or a competent man who can guide them properly. So somebody was sent to bring him in Punjab, and ultimately uh, Ras Bihari Bose agreed to it, and he reached. There were two stations, either Amritsar or Lahore. They used to take hire buildings on hire in false names and false designations. When they came to know that the police had come to know about it, they used to change their houses, change their names. So when Rasa Bihari Bose reached here, he decided that on February 21, 2015 was fixed as the date of uprising. Now, uprising means that they were to go to various military cantonments and they were to encourage them to revolt against the British government. And even different persons of the Gadar party, different leaders of the Gadar party were given different places.
Mhm.
And Kartar Singh Sraba was given Lahore cantonment that he is to work there. So, but the British people were very shrewd. They introduced their spies in the Sanstha, in the Gadar party, and they got to know that the would start uprising on February 21. So when Ghazal patriots came to know of it, they pre-planned the date as 19 February. But even the spies disclosed this date also. And ultimately it led to the arrest of large number of Ghazal patriots. But Ras Bihari Bose had escaped when he learned, came to know that they to the notice of the police. So they used to sing with one voice, हमारा हिंद भी फूले फलेगा एक दिन, लेकिन खाक में मिलेंगे खाक में लाखों हमारे गुल बदन पहले, हमें दुख भोगना लेकिन हमारी नस्लें सुख पाए, ये दिल में ठान लो अपने ए हिंदी मध्य जन पहले. They means that we have to die so that our future generations may live in peace. Ultimately, when they were arrested, a case was registered against them. It was known as Lahore Conspiracy Case, King Emperor versus Anand Kishore, and a number of charges were framed against them, and trial was held. It was virtually went almost uncontested because many Ghazal patriots refused to participate in the trial, and many refused to engage any lawyer uh, or
Sir,
prosecution witness.
before moving to Lahore conspiracy case judgment, I have some small queries.
हाँ जी.
This Gadar party was formed in 1914.
No. It was formed in 1913 when Lala Hardyal had reached there. It was
Okay.
25 March 1913. It was when this Lala Hardyal had reached there and met the people there.
And
Uh,
mostly in the Gadar party, there were Punjabis.
mainly Punjabis. They were
And
virtually all Punjabis.
six
हाँ
were there. Okay, okay.
हाँ.
Eh, And was there any connection between Gadar party and Subhash Chandra Bose?
No, not even 1%.
Acha.
हाँ. Because at that time it was 1930 or 15, and
Hmm.
Subhash Chandra Bose was already in the Congress, or he had ICS, passed ICS. And when Jallianwala Bagh took place in 1919, he had resigned from the ICS.
Acha. But in some place I read here that there was some bridge between Subhash Chandra Bose and Gadar party.
No.
There was no such connection. Okay.
No.
And this Kamagatu was the Japanese ship which carried Punjabis to Calcutta.
It was a Punjabi Baba Gurdat Singh who had hired a ship, entire ship, Kamagata, for taking the Punjabis to Canada. Uh, It was
Ah,
hired by Baba Gurdat Singh.
acha. Okay.
Uh,
And but
It
they could
was,
not land. They could not land in Canada, so they returned back to Calcutta.
yes, yes. And on the way at Yokohama
Hmm.
in Japan port, they
Hmm.
had become turned into patriots. They had gone there as residents, but that port, when they handed over, when Son Singh Pakna handed over to them Ghazal literature, they were
Hmm.
singing Ghazal poems and Ghazal literature throughout the ship journey. They
Hmm.
were
Hmm.
fully enthused for the independence of the country now. And
And
there is one, and
and
there is
hmm.
also one story of uh, uh, Permanent Chansi. Permanent Chansi, he was Chansi, as you know, is in UP. So he belonged to that area. He was going to America for further studies. So in Japan, when our ships of Ghazal patriots landed there, he was roaming there in Japanese dress. So somebody identified him as Indian and he asked, "Where are you going?" He said, "I am going to America for further studies." Oh, they told that we are coming from America to fight for Indian independence. And what will you do in America? So he said that also I am also going with you. So he from that Yokohama port, he shifted his life life image and returned to India by ship. And he was a great Sanskrit scholar, and he also entertained the Punjabis with his own poems.
Mm-hmm.
Hanji.
And what was the actual meaning of this Gadar? Gadar.
Gadar means it was 1857, it was a Gadar means there was an open war, anybody is killing anybody. So
Okay.
British people, they were killing all Punjabis when they were traveling from uh, this Ambala up to Delhi. They are killing all the villagers. Dead bodies were being hanged from the trees. And British, patriots were also killing the British people. But
Mm-hmm.
as our Sanskriti is, we were taking care of their ladies, not bothering them. But British were not doing it. They were killing ladies as well.
And what was the reason of the failure of Gadar movement?
The Gadar party, that is why they said that Gadar, I have already read you a poem which the
So
Ghazi patriots
on page
had.
157, on page 157,
Ha,
it is written that the Gadar uprising was fixed on 21st February 1915.
ha. That was only a kind of incitement of the Indian soldiers
And
against the
then
British.
it is written that the beginning of the failure of the Gadar movement started with the Chhabba dacoity.
Because Chabba is a village. When you travel from Chandigarh to Hoshiarpur, there is Chabba. And when the dacoity took place, and our patriots were also killed, and some shopkeeper was also killed. हालांकि many जो the Gadar patriots who had gone from America to that place, they had told the local people that they would not commit any murder while committing dacoity. But the local people, they did their own way, and local person was killed. The police took the investigation into their own hands, and they came to know from everything about the Ghazal patriots.
And that was the beginning of the failure of Gadar movement.
And then that was not the beginning, that was the beginning of the entry of the spies of British into the Ghazal patriot movement.
And when this Gadar movement ended,
Ghazal movement had ended when the date was changed from 21st February to 19th February. And when even that date came to be known to them, the British caught hold of all the people who had gathered in that house. So that was a failure of the
that was the
Ghazal
failure.
party. Huh.
And how many people were murdered by Britishers after the failure of Gadar movement?
So that is given in the trial.
Acha. Okay.
Huh. Huh. They had killed many, and so many Ghazal had taken place. Now, ultimately, the trial was held by which they had uh, they had punished, they had sentenced 24 persons to the death sentence.
And
And
who was
Kirpal Singh was at one time had become a police spy of the Britishers.
so he disclosed everything to them.
He entered posing as a hardcore Ghadar patriot into the ranks of the Ghadar patriots, and then he leaked out everything. to them.
But since there were so many people involved in Gadar party and there was significant British influence also, so was it not very difficult to keep it secret?
When a person enters in the Gadar party leaders, posing as if he is a hardcore Gadar patriot, so therefore everything was being discussed among the top leaders, and Sapai was a part of the top leadership. So he came to know everything. He used to tell the British that this is happening, this is happening. Even that Sapai had come to know that the Gadar patriot had come to know about his antecedents. So he rode over of the roof of the
Mhm.
house and gave a signal to the police. The
Mhm.
police reached there and arrested everybody, and trial started.
And now we can come to Lahore conspiracy case judgment.
Yes, that's right. So
What?
in this judgment, ultimately, some people had turned approvals and some had appeared as witnesses.
Mhm.
And there were a large number of persons who were sentenced to death. About 24% were sentenced to death, and 27 were uh, afforded to transportation for life. Then there was great hue and cry and questions in the assembly, and ultimately the Governor General had to come to Lahore, and he assured the people that he would. Lord Harding at that time was the Governor Viceroy or a Governor General. So he said that everything he would take care of and he would examine the judgment. So he handed over the judgment to legal member Honorable Sir Ali Imam. He read the whole judgment and recommended that only 6% were had committed the offences which were punishable with death. And he even kept Kartar Singh Sraba among those who were entitled to probation because he had not yet attained the age of this, had not crossed the age of probationer. But ultimately, the Governor General Lord Harding, they awarded 7% death sentence out of 24, and the remaining 40 were deported to the Andaman. That was the press release issued by the British. Now, when Kartar Singh Sraba was going to the gallows, so a poet has put the feeling of the companion uh, Ghazal patriots. That poem is on page 176. They said, फख्र है भारत को एक करतार तू जाता है आज जगत और पिंगले को भी साथ ले जाता है आज हम तुम्हारे मिशन को पूरा करेंगे संगियों कसम है हिंदी तुम्हारे खून से गाता है आज. So while going, Kartar Singh Sraba also expressed his own feelings, which were by converted into a poem, which he says, यही पाओगे महशर में ज़बां मेरी बयां मेरा मैं बंदा हिंद वालों का है हिंदुस्तान मेरा मैं हिंदी ठेठ हिंदी खून हिंदी जात हिंदी हूँ यही मजहब यही फिरका यही खानदान मेरा मैं इस उजड़े भारत के खंडर का एक जर्रा हूँ यही बस एक पता मेरा यही नामो निशान मेरा कदम लू मादरे भारत तेरे में उठते व बैठते कहाँ किस्मत मेरी ऐसी नसीबे ये कहाँ मेरा तेरी खिदमत में ए भारत ये सर जाए ये जान जाए तो समझूंगा ये मरना हयाते यादवान.
Good. So in this, I have again some small queries.
हाँ जी.
This case was tried in Lahore,
In Lahore.
and conspiracy case means Gadar conspiracy case.
Yes.
And At that time, king was there, queen was not there.
Because king was every case by the British was started by the name of king.
Acha, even if queen was there.
At that time must be king. The queen handed after queen was also a king, not
Uh,
like Rashtrapatni as our
hmm. Ji, ji,
tongues
ji,
spoken. So he is
ji.
a king only.
And who was Anand Kishore?
Anand Kishore was one of the Ghadar patriots.
Acha. So he was the dominant part of Gadar movement, Anand Kishore.
He was not, because his name has not occurred much anywhere, but he handed to be the first person out of the list handed over to them.
It
No,
might be
not even that.
alphabetic.
No,
Acha.
no, not alphabetically.
Okay, okay. So it was basically they then individual were tried in the part 4. Their
So
parts
that
were
was regarding the offense committed by them and
okay.
the sentence to be awarded to them.
Mhm. So this is actually Lahore conspiracy case judgment.
Yeah, that is right. There were
And
two Lahore conspiracy. There were two Lahore conspiracy cases. One is
mhm.
this of Ghadar patriots, and the other related to Bhagat Singh's matter.
And 7 were sentenced to death. And what happened
Yes,
to others? And what happened to others?
the other was sent to the Andaman Port Blair.
Oh, so that was worse than death sentence
Killing. That's it.
because they were
So they
tortured. They were tortured over there.
great torture, more torturous than even animals.
Hmm. And the next is so we have covered 7 patriots sent to gallows, and then
Huh.
press. What is this press communique?
Press communication, that was only this much, that we have awarded death sentence to 7%, and the
Hmm.
others have been sent to the order to be to uh, deportation.
Okay. And what was the success of the Gadar movement?
Gather movement was just to touch the top when they were the staircase was taken down from below. Even this lieutenant governor, and
Hmm.
so also the judgment, they say that it was about to reach the top when the it failed, when it came down.
Court cases also other
There
than
were
Lahore.
other cases also, because
Acha.
I will we'll discuss this tomorrow, because a
Hmm.
number of Ghadar patriots were tried in Bombay, in Burma, and some army Johns had also become anxious to fight the British. When they were being transferred, a bomb fell down from the bed of one of the soldiers. So that involved many soldiers, and some of them were given death sentence, some were given deportation. So there were that's a large number of them. We stop up to this, and the remaining we will discuss tomorrow,
And
including the torture in the cellular jail.
one more thing is that there is a place called Kamagatu Maru Nagar. What is the significance of
Kamangatu,
Maru Nagar?
they means they may have kept a name after that Kamangata Maru ship. They
Okay,
may
okay,
have kept, as
okay.
we have so many colonies, Subhash colony or this other colony. So
Hmm.
Kamangata Maru was the name of a ship hired by Baba Gurditt Singh for taking Punjabis to Canada.
Hmm. Right, sir. Thank you. So nice of you. Okay.
Thank you.